forget the weekend. It's usually about 2:30.
It's not mine.
That's one time I called Springfield on something. I called it. I'm not taking the time home.
It didn't sound loud enough to be like it was right there. That's why I wondered, okay.
Some people take a little bit more time than others.
A little slow. It takes a lot to
I didn't look up for like an hour, so I was filing some stuff, so I didn't. That's my little.
I wish it worked on everyone as well as it just worked.
Well, they only get 8-bit. They want you to get their Chicago boys and fix that up.
I seen it, yeah. I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Shelbyville City Council to order. If everybody could please stand for the invocation and the pledge. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for the beautiful day that you've given us. Thank you for the many gifts that you've given us as a people. Please be with us this evening as we discuss the business of the people, and please help us as we make decisions for the betterment of everybody involved. In your name we pray, amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call, please.
Bernhaber?
Here.
Schaefer?
Here.
Shanks?
Here.
Wright? Here. Mayor?
Here. Item number 3 is the approval of the consent agenda. It includes the March 15th meeting, the special meeting on March 25th, and the claims to be approved. Are there any questions on the consent agenda?
I move we accept the agenda as presented.
Commissioner Schaefer, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Fernhaber? Roll call, please.
Bernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 4, the request to approve the annexation ordinance for Prairie Power. It's in the package. Mr. Kiley, is there anything you want to?
Yeah, the agreement was already worked out prior meetings, but we had to give notice to the township and road district, which is Rose. We've sent all those notices by certified mail. They've all been received, and so that takes care of the procedural part of it. So it's a matter of passing the ordinance now.
Are there any questions on the ordinance? Do we have a motion to approve the ordinance?
So moved.
Commissioner Fernhaber, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Shanks? Roll call, please.
Bernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright? Yes. Mayor?
Yes. Item number 5, the request to approve the recommendation letter for the water metering system.
Yeah. Mark Bingham?
Yes, thanks for having me. My name is Mark Bingham. If anybody doesn't know me, I'm an engineer working for Chastain Associates, and so we've opened a water meter bid package for the city of Shelbyville, and we got a little recommendation letter to submit to the Illinois EPA through the revolving loan program. Basically, the gist of it is talk about the cost of the project, which is $895,777, and with that, part of it will be principal forgiveness, up 50% up to $400,000. So you can see it on the letter. And then that will be anticipated annual payment of $35,527.97. So basically, I need a approval of this recommendation letter, and then that moves us to the next agenda item after that. If anybody has any questions.
Does anybody have any questions on the letter?
Mark, quite a while back, we had another presentation that was given to us by a similar meter installation group. And at the time, they had forecast that the possibility within the next 4 or 5 years that extra revenue given because of the age of the meters that we have in existence, which are really not measuring accurately what's being done here, that we would see an increase in the,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yes,
Will
absolutely.
this also help with outlying areas?
Yes, so yeah, we're focusing, the whole city of Shelbyville, so we'll have the real water, systems included in it. Roughly there's 3,500 meters off the top of my head. So it's a whole collection facility for the city of Shelbyville and the real water area system.
Okay.
And the other thing that Martha mentioned earlier too was that this will save our guys from having to go out and read the meters because they're going to be communicating back to the system, software system here. Plus, in this package, we hope to include new billing software for our water office, which should bring us some more efficiencies as well.
Now, do these meters ping when they go bad?
Yeah, so they'll like Debbie had mentioned, they'll report back to the central hub, that's what I described it, which is the water department, and then they'll say either if there's somebody tampering with them, if there's an issue with them where they're not reading, then yes, the water department will have to go check on those meters. It'll be where you can you'll have actually daily usage rather, whereas now it's every month. And you can find out what the usage is. So you'll see if there's water leaks in somebody's either their home. It's much more advanced, I guess, than what you have in your current system. So and over the last couple of years, we've gone through kind of looking at different water meter systems, and this is what we had selected.
So you mentioned it could notify for leakage, so if somebody is, going on vacation or something like that, and their water's just running,
Yep.
there could be a notification to help, to get
Yes.
that turned off.
Absolutely. I anticipate probably the water department getting a lot of calls actually after these are installed. Or you're going to get a lot of where you're going to have issues with some homeowners where there's going to be water usage where it spikes and whatnot, and that'll just have to be worked out over the next couple of years as they find those.
I'm going to take it that also because we can compile this information on that and cross-reference with other things, we can pretty much figure out where a leak on a main line may be.
In theory, yes, you can. You'll find where some usage is. Absolutely, yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.
The other thing I just want to mention is, everybody has that surcharge on their bill, which that goes directly for water meter projects, and we have over $335,000 in that fund right now. Plus, there are a couple CDs that would be paying for this as well. That were put aside years past for this purpose.
So when you say paying for it, Debbie, as opposed to going 20-year term at the 527 and some change, would it come off up front?
We could take it off up front if we wanted to.
Absolutely can.
The $400,000 that goes to the principal forgiveness, is that 400 towards the 895, 777, or these
Yes.
additional?
Yeah, so that's if you do the math there, that's why so the total is all those added up, and then your total project is $629,650.31 with the 400. That's what the project should be. That's what it should be with the 400 already taken off. If that makes sense.
Do we have any other questions? Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation letter for the water metering system?
So moved.
Commissioner Wright, do we have a second? Commissioner Fernhaber, roll call please.
Fernhaber,
Yes.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks.
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 6, the request to approve the notice of intent to award the water metering system.
Yes, so this notice of intent is to issue to the contractor that says we're ready to move forward with this meter project. This then gets submitted to the Illinois EPA after it is approved, if it is approved. Then I submit all the packets, and it takes roughly 30 to 60 days for them to approve it. There will be an agreement that comes back to the city, and that's when we start the meter project. So
What can we expect time-wise to have the meters installed?
So we had planned, so the city is installing the meters, so it's kind of going to go on their schedule, but we envision having probably 70% of them, hopefully by the end of this year, and then there could be more of them by then, but that's what we were looking at. There's going to be some areas where, we'll get to them as we get to them. That's the plan.
Thanks, Mark.
Yes.
Are there any additional questions? We have a motion to approve the notice of intent to award the water metering system.
So moved.
Commissioner Schaefer, do we have a second? Commissioner Shanks, roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 7, request to approve 3 summer workers for the water department.
Yeah, in regards to this water meter project, the water department was asking if we could have, we normally have 2 or 3 summer employees anyway, but I wanted permission to hire 3 summer employees at the 1,000-hour max. That would be AJ Stokes, Jordan Winings, and Jack Townsend. They have all worked for the city in the past. And so I just wanted, since we are planning this project and it appears that it will go through, if we have these guys on staff, then they'll be able to go through and help install these meters, go back through and check them, get them started, and so it'll just make it flow a little faster. And that way, our seasoned employees, as other issues come up, they could be available to address those leaks or whatever else might come up.
Does anybody have any questions?
Will these 3 be working with supervision from
Yes.
the current employee?
Yes.
Any other? We have a motion to approve the hiring of the 3 summer workers.
So moved.
Commissioner Wright, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Schaefer, roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks? Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 8, request to approve the MI2 renewal contract.
Yeah, we entered into a contract with MI2 3 years ago, and that'll be up this November. Jeff Mummer is here representing MI2, and Mike, of course, has been working with us on a daily basis. But they have proposed a new contract to start November 1st. Their proposal is a 10-year period with the city could opt out within 5 years if they so chose to. So I think I sent this out for everybody to look at, and a couple things. One that Jack brought up was about the insurance terms, I think.
Right, yeah, we've just been trying to go to some universal terms on our contractor agreements. What we had in the original agreement's pretty close to what we have, but my suggestion would be just to go back to MI2 with what we have in our other agreements and see if they would be on board with that. It's like a change to the work comp coverage and also to one other area of coverage too, I think on the aggregate number, but they're otherwise very, very close already.
Jeff, did you have anything you want to say?
No, I'd just say that I think the insurance terms are the same as our original contract.
Right.
So if there need to be some changes, we'll take a look at it and see.
And it's just that we've changed them since the original contract with you guys without it.
Right.
So it's trying to keep
So I'll take a look at those and talk with our insurance and see what they have to do to meet them.
Great.
Depending whether it's going up or down, it could affect the price a little bit.
For sure.
My guess is it probably won't a whole lot if they're similar.
I didn't know if anybody else had any questions. I didn't know if everybody was okay with the 10-year term with the 5-year opt-out option, or?
I think we have to have the licensed staff or personnel there.
Yes.
And, we may have a current employee or 2 that are taking those classes, but it'll take a period of time for them to get to the level of being able to manage it without these guys. So I think 10 years with the 5-year option makes,
Yes.
instead of just, redoing it all the time, makes good sense to me.
Is there anyone currently seeking to get the operator's license?
Yes, we have a couple that are interested in it and are working towards it.
And am I right in thinking there's like a 4 or 5 year work period that they have to cover?
Yeah.
It's an 8-year period to sit for the top license, 6-year for the class 2 license that's required out there right now. And both of those have some substitution experience education or otherwise, can cut that down some, so.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good deal with 10 years.
And just as a note, right now, we pay MI2 $16,500 a month, and this new contract, it would be $17,295.75 per month, so not a huge increase on a monthly basis. And I will say that MI2 has saved us some money in other areas, saving electricity because of the efficiencies they have brought up and some different changes they have made and just the efficiency of the whole plant in general.
I think they've done a great job.
Yes.
I appreciate all the efforts they've made for Shelbyville.
Any other questions or any other comments, Mr.?
No, I just get the insurance information to them and go from there.
Do we want to table it, or do we want to approve it based upon the acceptance, the insurance changes?
I think the changes are pretty standard, so I would be surprised if they don't already have the coverages we're looking for in place, so I would be in agreement to approve, subject to the few minor tweaks that Jack can work out with them.
So I would make a motion to approve the 10-year contract with MI2 contingent on getting the insurance tweaks in place.
Commissioner Wright, and we have a second.
Second?
Commissioner Fernhaber, roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 9, the request to approve the 2021-2022 library budget. There's a handout included that shows what was submitted. Rachel, was there anything you want to say about it, or
No, I don't have anything to say.
Jack, do you have anything? Are there any questions on the budget that was submitted for the library?
I'm just curious where it is in comparison to last year's budget. Up, down, same?
I didn't review last year's, I'm
Okay,
sorry.
that's all right.
Any additional questions, or do we want to?
I have a quick question. The buildings and grounds for the $30,361, what is that at the library? That expense item?
I mean, honestly, I can't answer that.
Okay.
I know that they have a multi-year plan for repairs and maintenance to the building of different things, so I would assume that it would be that. And I need for that amount, I know that they've done heating, maybe they have a window somewhere, they've done
So just your normal annual
yeah,
maintenance?
yeah.
You mean they maintain your building?
It's a beautiful building.
Beautiful. Beautiful concept. It's a beautiful building too, yes.
Any other questions?
I make a motion, we accept the proposal.
Commissioner Schaefer, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Shanks, roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 10, the request to approve the sale of 314 West South 2nd. Rachel, do you have any information, or Jack?
This is one that we just actually put on the market recently, and right now we can't accept anything less than 80% of the appraised value. The appraised value is $5,000, and they offered $4,000, which is 80%.
So if we choose to, we can go ahead and accept the sale. Are there any questions on the proposed sale?
Jack, did you have any issues with the
This is
contract?
actually a contract that we worked up because the ones we've done in the past weren't exactly a perfect fit. So this, we shifted some expense to the buyer, which is then paying on real estate commission fees and so forth. So this is, I think, a better way to go about it.
Well, I know coming into mowing season, having these properties on, so city employees don't have to do.
Yep.
Yeah,
Keep them coming.
yeah, exactly.
Getting back
So
into private hands.
I would make a motion that we accept the contract for sale.
Commissioner Fernhaber, do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Wright? Roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 11, the request to approve the 2021 street maintenance.
This again is our annual plan to maintain city streets, amount of aggregates and the cost of materials. I think you'll notice that everything's gone up. I know rock and oil has. We'd like to get, once again, I want to say we're looking at probably 15 to 18% or more of the city streets repaved or recovered with the rock mixture rather than CA6 limestone. We're going to use the crushed rock again, which is a little more expensive, but it lasts longer and cuts down on the dust. Given that this is a pretty aggressive plan that we have on here, I move that we go ahead and accept this estimated, or this motor fuel tax expenditures as presented.
Does anybody have?
I was just gonna ask Tom, going to the crushed rock instead of the limestone, are we in our third, fourth season of that?
I want to say fourth, because I think we started it when Farron was still here, and I know Opie's been here for 3, so, you know, it's been very well received, because of course it cuts down dust for
Right, yeah.
everybody and everything, and it lasts longer.
So has the entire town been done with that at least once
I
now?
think there's a
or-
few spaces that are not done yet, but pretty much everything's been coated at least once.
Any other questions about the maintenance program?
I'd make a motion to go ahead
Commissioner
and
Schaefer?
proceed with this.
Okay.
Commissioner Shanks, second. Roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 12, the request to approve additional funding for the South Morgan Street project. Last week, that Stan had approached me and had indicated that as the trenches have been dug along South First and South Washington, that there's been issues that's popped up that's going to require additional funding. And so I had asked him, and I think in the packet, there's a detail of what they were looking at, and then Stan's here to answer any questions that we may have about what's causing the issue. Stan, did you want to?
Yeah, basically the biggest part of the issue is just the condition of the subsurface along First Street. You know, a little bit on the end of Washington, but mainly it's just First Street. Everything is falling in. We're finding railroad ties. We're finding picket fences, building timbers, what appears to be probably burn piles. And it's just causing everything to cave in. What's escalated the cost a little bit also is there was a stretch on the east end of First Street there near Washington where the environmental bores showed the need for removal of the soil and hauling that soil off to a landfill. You know, obviously when the walls start caving in, and that caused additional soil to be required to be hauled off. Everything commingled, there was no way to separate, and there isn't a company out there doing this work, and they're kind of testing as they go and checking the soil, and everything was coming up for positive readings that it needed to be hauled off, and so that's been completed. They continue to monitor going west, but at this point they're out of the section that needs to be hauled off. That being said, you know, if they see something, they could encounter something that, you know, where we get into additional non-special waste. I mean, and that's a complete unknown. There's, I guess, apparently some old gas stations at the corner of Morgan and First that are cause for a little bit of concern. But at this point, they're only monitoring. They're not hauling. There is no plans for additional material to be hauled to a landfill. Again, that could all change. They've kind of discontinued the project. I think just to give the city a chance to evaluate their options moving forward, and I guess that's where we're at. I mean, you know, I kind of detailed some costs. A lot of those costs are estimates based on just kind of, you know, what we think. If conditions improve, you know, those costs could go down. But on the flip side, they could continue to escalate as well. I mean, we don't know. I mean, there's rumors about what's under Morgan. Again, all those are just rumors, though. It was impossible for the contractor. The contractor had none of this information available to him at the time of bidding. So I guess that's the reason for the additional cost to the city. You know, I mean.
So based on these numbers,
Yes.
at this point, what are the anticipated additional costs to date?
You know, we're not through the entire section, but we're not. But right now, it's according to those numbers, we're coming up to 437,000, I believe it is. So second to last column. So yeah. So most of that is most of those costs are additional trench backfill. Basically, you have to, you know, anytime you're under a pavement, you have to backfill the trench with sand. Additional pavement. And that's another thing on that street. The contractor wasn't aware there was concrete. It's an oil and chip surface, but they were unaware that it was concrete. The fact they're unaware is we're not really contributing to the cost increase in this case, but it's also a key joint there at the center line of First Street, and that key joint is snapping off, and the entire south half, the entire north half of, you know, First Street is basically falling into the trench. They're using trench boxes. You know, in my opinion, they're doing everything they can to minimize these cave-ins, but the soil is such that it's just, and the depth, I mean, we're 20 feet deep doesn't assist in being able to control the cave-ins. So.
When you say they weren't aware there was concrete there, they weren't aware that it was a concrete road?
Yeah, they weren't aware it was a concrete road, yeah. If you just drive down it, it's been oil and chipped over. So, you know, if you drive it, it looked like an oil and chip road before they started excavation. So.
But what does oil and chip go over?
You can oil and chip over anything. I mean.
So you can oil and chip over dirt?
Actually, they used to back in the. I've seen old IDOT standards that showed oiled dirt back from the 50s or, you know, back from way back when. But that's how all these township roads started, was oil and dirt. And
so when they're working on a project like this, they don't drill a test pilot hole or do something to try to determine what's under the oil and chip? That's normal and customary to not.
No, not generally. No. I mean, it's, you know, the engineer could possibly do that. I mean, if they're concerned, you know.
Who was the engineer on that project?
Shelby Engineering.
Stan, you say there was contamination in that soil. What is the contamination? Any idea?
No, I guess I can't speak for that.
So when we did the environmental study, Bodine came down here and they did test drillings all in this area for this project. Did they not go down that far?
Yes, they bored it, and they showed.
Okay.
And they showed that area, and they're the ones that identified that area as needing to be hauled off to a landfill.
And I'm not surprised what was found down in that area.
Yeah.
That was actually a gully at one time that was backfilled with all kinds of stuff.
Well, I mean, the rumor is, I guess the buildings to the south, apparently there used to be a basement on that.
You may find a bus right down here too, or a
What's
car
that?
anyway.
Well, I guess that's kind of, I mean, one of the reasons I'm here is, you know, kind of coming up Morgan, there's additional potential, and I don't know what the city's long-term plans are exactly for streetscaping here. I know it's in the plans, but I guess just thinking out loud here a little bit, if we're gonna be tearing up the street, that potentially could, I mean, if it's gonna be a nice 6-7 foot wide hole, that's fine, we can, you know, dig the hole, put the pipe in and patch it, and then we can come back and do this other work, but if this hole's gonna grow to, you know, 15, 18 feet wide, at street level, are we better to wait and, do that storm sewer work with the rest of the surface work?
What's the depth gonna be over here on Morgan, where you turn north?
We're gonna be
off of
fairly
First?
deep, for a while. There's and you know, that's something we looked into this winter some. But there's a sanitary, there's a combined, I assume it is, coming out of this alley behind the building, and then it's kind of 45 and across Morgan, and it goes under the law office, it appears. But we need to stay deep to get underneath that line, and then after that, the plan is to shallow it up to about, you know, so we'll be about 20 feet deep until we get to about this alley, and at that point, we'll shallow up to more of 8 to 10 feet depth. So, and there is also a concern there that there's a water line 10 feet away. That's, you know, it's I think a good sized line that if that trench starts caving in and it caves in all the way to that water line, and that water line's, you know, there could be issues with that water line as well. It could turn into a, if the water, you know, the pressures on those water lines could force that water main into the trench, and we could have a big pipe bust, I guess. I mean,
Mark, I'm gonna throw you in on this too. When we did our SRO, part of that long-term plan was the separation of sanitary and storm runoff. Is there any government funding to help pay for this?
Well, I mean, there absolutely is. Yeah, I mean, combined, so CSOs, that's what I think you meant when you said CRO, CSOs. There is, yeah, I mean, basically what you're doing is a stormwater separation. You're taking the stormwater off of the combined sewer system and then trying to reuse the old, at least my thoughts are trying to reuse the old combined sewer as a more of only sanitary waste. Now, I don't know, you know, I've looked at all the details of how much stormwater is being taken off, but there is, I mean, that's, you know, one of them we just, like, we had just turned in was the project to, you know, do the east side facility to, you know, rehabilitate that, work on the southwest CSO, and then also the, you know, the main trunk sewer. We did not include the storm sewer project on that because it was already slated for your funding otherwise. Not to say that we couldn't, though. That's one, you know, one avenue of funding it. There's the issues. It's stormwater, and you know, right now there's, I would say in the infrastructure industry, it's, you know, more about drinking water. You know, fixing, you know, water problems, drinking water issues. There's also, yeah, trying to reduce, you know, waste getting to your main, you know, water bodies. That's ultimately what you're doing, is trying to separate the storm and the sanitary, and then just discharging storm to the final outfall. But there is, I don't know all the details of where things are at, and you know, within the construction scope of the project necessarily, but.
So if it's out there, we could apply for it.
Yes, but if it's already in construction, then you know it's already too far along. Now, if you're wanting to, what I'm understanding, it sounds like you're wanting to delay the project.
Well, we're talking about
possibly.
potentially abandoning the last 400 feet of the project.
To
The
more,
last what? I didn't hear that.
The last about 400 feet. Just
400 feet.
just from First Street here to Main,
I just didn't hear
to the
it.
connection. Yeah, that's fine. It was, I don't think it's quite 400. I think it's 370.
What does that do for us if we postpone or abandon that? Are we getting benefit from what we have done, or do
is it?
No, I mean, minimal, so, I think that this is phase one anyway. I think the main thing is, it's just gonna be collecting this intersection, in terms of this phase. And it's gonna be separating, and I think the plan was for it to, kind of drain the entire downtown,
It would have, yeah, it would have looked, I mean, it was valuable to your long-term control plan because it was trying to take some of the stormwater off and you would get some benefit, it wouldn't truly fix everything, but it would reduce, some inflow. But so, it kind of sounds like to me, you actually, I don't know what the scope of the contract is, where the contractor's at, but I almost think you need to go do a bore and look at, a couple shots where the line's going. It's just me thinking out loud, so I'm not know where the scope of the things are, but figuring out what the soil conditions are where you're going to go, rather than, because the soil bore's not expensive, I guess. I mean, somebody got to pay for it ultimately, I guess, but.
So my question is, where's Shelby Engineering on this? If it's their project and they did the engineering, why are they not here speaking to it?
We're doing the construction inspection. We're doing the phase 3 part of it, basically overseeing the construction oversight.
So in your opinion, how much of this stuff should have been known up front that's not known up front?
It's difficult to say. I mean, he's right. One option is to do bores and provide them with bores. Bores can be hit or miss though, so,
Yeah, you're not going to do bores all the way along the whole length.
You're not going to know, so how many bores do you want to do, and
I don't know, I'm not an engineer, I'm just asking how
Yeah,
much
no,
of
I
this
know,
could have been
I know, but-
known up front that,
it could have been, if they could have supplied some bores to the contractors bidding the project, and that would have assisted, I guess, and potentially assisted them, so.
would that have been normal and customary, do you think?
I guess in retrospect, in a old downtown area, yeah, that would probably be, it's something I would probably recommend.
I think so. Did we not do bores? We did regular soil bores first time out there, then we did the environmental bores after that. So that area all through there was bored prior to this project commencing. I remember they came up and down out of here, and then we had to come back in, we had to have Bodine come in and do the environmental bores. There were two different ones that were done.
Yes, okay.
And one thing I'm wondering about is if we do the boring along Morgan, are we going to be able to avoid, is there a guarantee that we can avoid the issues that we did on South First? Or is it going to be kind of hit and miss too?
Not really, you'll just know that it's there at that point. I mean, it's still, the contract's already been, awarded, and it's under construction, so their prices are based on, standard construction methods.
Are we talking a different kind, I'm curious, are we talking a different kind of bore, Tom, or the bores that you're talking about that were done should have found, like, for example, the concrete underneath?
Well, they would have gone, they would have noticed that it was on there. Whether they made note of it or not is another story. But I think what they were doing was going to look at what the subsurface was, what it consisted of. Then when Bodine came in here, it was checking the soil to see if there was
The environmental
conditions,
part,
right, with the soil itself,
So do we have any way to know what was done with the bores to check the sub?
other than the report.
So in terms of the, how it affects the construction cost, the fact that concrete is under First Street is not really, it's more the fact that it's caving in, and the center line joints, it was a key joint, which basically made that entire north side pretty unstable, and when the soil underneath it started to cave, the concrete went with it. So
That's a pretty ugly hole over there.
it is.
Yeah, I mean, I did enough trenching in my days that it's nice to have a nice clean one, but that is
I
not.
mean, and they did a great job. It was a pretty clean hole all the way up Washington until the
Right.
last, I mean, right at the intersection of First and Washington, it started to hit some sand and, it expanded a little bit there. And I think that's something they were just gonna kinda take care of as part of the contract, but then when it continued up First Street, and it just was, I mean, it's basically about 18 feet wide, I mean, the last, so, and they started to, you know, they kept digging, and I think it was last Thursday, they got about 30 feet of good material, and they thought they were kind of through it, and then they got to that alley and near those, and, I mean, well, you can see kind of where it's at now, and they hit that again, and they decided to pull off the project and let everybody.
That's my concern is 437,000 is a pretty big number,
It
and
is.
how did we get to that number? You know, now we're stopping the project and deciding whether or not we can go forward. Was there a point when we hadn't spent 437 that we could have stopped? Or, I mean, I understand it crept up on you, but there's a big space between 0 and 437,000.
Yeah, I mean, we had, we discussed this, we learned from the mayor, I guess, last Tuesday, with our concerns and, you know, and we didn't really have the authority to, tell the contractor to, you know, to stop working. I mean, it was, so,
But at that point, it's my understanding, we'd already kind of ate the bill for 437,000. That was the number that you gave the mayor.
not 437, and quite frankly, that 437 is, we're kind of assuming it's gonna be bad all the way through First Street. So,
So that 437 hasn't been spent all of it anyway, hasn't been spent at this point. It's what
No.
is being anticipated.
what's kind
As
of what we're
additional
anticipating at
cost
this
right now.
point, based on, you know, making the assumption that we're gonna,
So it could be or could not be. We won't know until you get in there.
And could be more.
But it could be more, that's right. Yeah, it could always be
yeah,
more.
especially if it goes up more, especially if it continues up Washington.
You don't
Or
know
up
until you get in
Morgan,
there.
I'm sorry.
So is that 437 estimate to get to the corner of Morgan and First?
Yes,
Has nothing to do with what you might find on Morgan at this point?
yes.
So what was it on the spreadsheet, the 176, then that would be.
Is that the last column? I apologize.
Yeah, it's.
Printed it, then I forgot I have it on my, yes, that's just kind of what I kind of threw up, that's kind of the cost to go up Morgan.
And so then you'd be talking about 600,000 total.
No.
Or you would take the
No,
176
no.
off the 437,
Yeah, you can take the 176 off potentially.
off the 437 if we don't go up more.
Yes. If you would, there'd be a little bit of cost probably, I mean, they've already purchased the manhole, so there'd be a little bit of cost there. I didn't separate all that out.
So the 176 is what was in the initial bid, anticipated in the
Essentially,
initial
that's the
bid,
anticipated cost to complete the Morgan.
to complete Morgan, in the
From the
original
manhole at First Street up to the tie-in main. That's the trench backfill, that's the pavement, and that's the pipe and the structures.
bid. So if we don't do that work, that's what we're saving on the initial contract, which would come off the 437, but like you said, with the project where it's at now, we're getting very, very minimal
Mhm.
benefit from the work that's already been done.
Yes, so, I mean, and if we make a tie-in here, basically these inlets at this intersection will be tied into the project. So,
One other question just on, are all the, if you hit something like a drain, is that being repaired as you go along?
I mean, yes.
Because the
Not
question was brought up to us by a
necessarily
building owner.
What's that?
A question was brought up to us by a building owner, that he's concerned that
Yes.
that there's a tile that may have, a drain tile that may have run down through there, that he suspects goes out that way and doesn't know if it's been repaired or not. If it has not been repaired, and something happens, a backup or something, what's our recourse for this? You know, my experience has been if you break it, you fix it.
Yeah, and they will, I mean, I discussed the project with the gentleman who owns the building on the north side of First Street, there on Washington, and he he was concerned about the ones in the alley being replaced, and that's basically what that big hole is right now. And, yeah, no, they will they immediately replace? Not necessarily, but they will be replaced before the contractor
Pulls out.
pulls out the job. I mean, in general, they just keep going until they can get the material they need to make, and leave it open, leave that section open until they can get the material in there to make the repairs.
And that,
So,
kind of along that line, so any of the storm sewers or anything like that that are coming into that, those are, as you run over those, are you
yes,
mapping those out, are you
yeah,
documenting them so we know later what?
yes. I mean, there's a drain line that comes from, I think the square here where the statue is that it's sitting open right now. We're waiting to make the connection at
All
First
that,
and Washington.
all
and
that
that's-
documentation will be given to the city, like,
So-
so our water and sewer department will have that for later knowledge.
Yes, we can identify the locations. I mean, it'll be in our notes. It'll be in our notes that, we have on the project.
I would hope we'd get that information.
I mean, I just think that
Well, I
would
mean,
be,
I'm
Spending
just
a lot of
thinking-
bucks on this, I hope we get something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, we can do some as-built plans will show that, so. That being said, there's, on occasion where, contractor can dig a trench and it's not obvious that there's a drain line there. I mean, so, it has that, it can happen where a tile will be missed. So, I don't think, especially when there's cadence and such, but, so, but if they know about them, they've been fixing them, so.
Were there other questions from the council?
I had some questions, Stan. So this timeline that we were provided was indicating that, well, I guess my question is, which contract, there were some references to Western, I wasn't familiar with them.
Western's the environmental, the company doing the environmental work.
Okay,
Fort
so,
Kenny doing the soil monitoring.
okay, so they're a sub of
They're a
Kenny.
sub to Kenny.
Okay, which entity submitted the pre-construction plan?
Well, Kenny did through Western. Western prepared the plan and Kenny submitted it.
And was it Shelby Engineering or Upchurch that signed off on that, or somebody else?
We reviewed it, we didn't,
Well, it's gotta be endorsed by an engineer or a geologist, right?
so. I don't have that with me, so.
And then you mentioned that the state indicated that the review and approval of that document would be the responsibility of the local roads department?
I think it means the local agency, I think it was within 10 of that.
Well, my question, is that something the state relayed to you, or is that the information you got from somewhere else? Because my understanding is the work's not to start until the engineer approves it.
So,
The engineer approves the plan.
we did not sign off on it.
Okay.
But we did review it and we were comfortable with everything that was in it.
Okay.
So,
You know,
I mean,
if someone signed
we
off on
would-
it?
I would have felt comfortable in signing off on it.
Okay.
So, I guess it was my understanding that was something that, Shelby Engineering and Kenny had worked out previously.
Okay. Have you seen an executed 2730 on this? Like one approved by an engineer, whoever that might be, or geologist?
No, I don't believe I have. So,
Yes, sir.
If I may, Mayor, just as a suggestion, and I don't know any of the numbers involved in this, but I would encourage you, ask your attorney to look into the Change Order Act, because I'm assuming this is a change order to increase, and both the Change Order Act and which is under 50 ILCS. There's also a criminal statute related to change order obligations of what must be done. And I would encourage you to do that before you make a decision, because it sounds like there's a lot of unknowns. That's all I have, thank you.
You bet, thank you. Sounds good. Are there any other questions? And which in the meantime, I know that they didn't work Friday or today. Is it suspended then until, or do we need to take action to suspend the construction? And if so, what does that mean? Because I know that the people would need access down there. So, do you know what their plans are, what the contract is?
I don't think they intend to start back up very soon until there's a resolution on this. But I can't speak, I mean, I guess, you know, that's my, that's kind of what they've conveyed to me, but that doesn't make it so, I guess, so.
But you're managing, or you're managing the project, right? Or no?
We're doing the construction oversight, no, the contractor manages the project.
Okay, construction oversight. So
Yeah.
as that entity doing the construction oversight, wouldn't you know definitively what's going on and if they've halted construction or not halted construction and for what period of time or until what action's taken? Well, it seems like there's a communication gap here and I'm just trying to figure out where that gap lies.
I don't think they intend to, they've told me they don't intend to come back, you know, but they could change they could have a meeting tomorrow and decide that Wednesday they want to start back up and finish this job out. They have equipment sitting here that they either need to pull off this job and use it somewhere else, or they need to finish this job.
Do you know, Mike?
They're waiting to see what you guys have to say before they make a move. They called me, they were going to be in Wednesday. If you guys, they just don't know where to go from here.
Well, I think we need to put a halt on anything going forward until Jack said we will look into some of this legal.
So we need to have a vote to suspend, and then by doing that, I guess, how long would that be? And,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
don't
do
think we
they,
can wait 2 more weeks. I think we might have to look at another special meeting
yeah,
that has to be posted.
because we don't,
It's not on the agenda tonight to suspend anything, it's just whether or not we're gonna approve it, so I'd just say that what you can do is just not approve the additional funding
okay.
for now. We can do a special meeting between now and the 19th.
So what we would need to do then is to make a motion for it and then defeat it?
Should we
No,
just, should we
it's
just
not
table
just- you can just
spending
not,
the additional?
just need no motion, if there's no motion, we just move on.
Okay. And then when would be a good time? I guess what information do we need to have? And when would we want to set up another special meeting? Because, you know, I'd hate for this to drag on and on and on while there's a trench there open.
So, you know, that's my concern, is that you got a big hole over there, and there's I'm sure Amber doesn't want to leave their equipment hooked up onto that like they have.
Yeah.
I'll come up with a list of things that I need to have a look at, and I can do that tomorrow.
Okay. And then from there, we'll set the meeting, or?
I think so, yeah.
Still, I have one more. Can I ask one more question?
You bet.
And I'm glancing through this paperwork, but it says during excavation activities, Western, which Jack got the answer to who they are, Kenny, but then it says Project RE. Is Upchurch Project RE?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So project, and can you tell us what the R and the E stand for?
Resident engineer.
Resident engineer, thank you.
Any other questions, or? Thank you. The next item is 13, the request to approve a pay scale for the pool employees. Commissioner Shanks?
Okay. Yes, it's our intention to open the pool this year. As you know, we did not have the pool open at all last year. We're going to open with whatever guidelines the state requires for distancing, and that may be in flux and may change throughout the summer, but we hired a pool manager, and she is in the process of hiring staff and lifeguards with the intention and understanding that we're going to open the pool Memorial Day weekend. as such, minimum wage has increased since the pool was last opened, and we need to approve the wages. Starting wages for concession employees at the pool in 2019 was $9.25, and then there was premiums above that for additional training or level of expertise. So the lifeguards made 50 cents more at $9.75. Head lifeguards made $1 more than that at $10.75, of which we have a couple of head lifeguards. And then the pool manager made $12.50. So obviously we have to get to $11 minimum wage. So with the concessions, that would put us at $11. And then if we did continue the same system through, that would put lifeguards at $11.50, head lifeguards at $12.50, and pool manager at $14.25. And we did also, I've discussed with the pool manager about some very modest increases in a few of the prices for concessions and for a few like lessons and things like that, with the hope of offsetting that increase. But regardless, we have to go to at least $11 for concessions, so I wanted to see what council's thoughts were on where we want to be on the rest of them.
And I missed it. 11's the minimum premium now. That's what
11
you
is
said.
current minimum wage. Yeah, it went from $9.25 to $10 last year, and then 11 at the start of this year. So we've had a $1.75 increase since the last time the pool was open. So
From now on, it changes on the first, right?
first of every year, it's going to go $1 up until reaching 15. And I can talk from experience. Labor market is very difficult right now. It's very hard to find help, and if you're not paying premium price, you're probably not going to get help. And I know from experience also that some of these same kids that take these lifeguard positions also end up working at restaurants such as mine or other businesses in town, and they will sometimes say, well, they pay me more over here, so I'm going to tell her I'm not available anymore on whatever days. So it's a concern if we try to keep the pay to the bare minimum. I think we're going to have to pay more rather than less to get people on staff to pool. My recommendation would be that we keep the same differential as we had in the past, but starting at $11 instead of $9.25.
So I have a question on that. Is there going to be an increase in the pool fees this year from 2019?
We did not anticipate, and this is not decided yet, but I have met with Heidi and looked at where we're at. We're still at $5 for a daily pass, and that's an increase. We'd increased it a couple of years ago from 4 to 5. So my thought is we probably would want to stay there if we can. We did look at the family passes, and there was a modest increase in the family pass. I think we were talking $15 on the family annually. Unfortunately, I don't have that number in front of me, but they were preliminary. We basically agreed to probably go $15 on the family pass for the year.
Yeah, Mike?
Lifeguards, to be a lifeguard, you have to pay $200 for training. Well, all these lifeguards missed last year, and they're gonna have to pay $200 for training. So they have to work 400 hours just to pay for that to be equal to the concession workers.
I believe the city, do we not pay for their certification?
I thought of that.
Never have.
That's something to consider too. I mean, I guess probably maybe the differential was partly to accommodate for that, but I think anyway we look at it, we're going to have to pay more for good people than we've had in the past.
Is that something that Blisswood Night would be able to give any assistance to? I mean, do they have anybody that's certified that can come down and do a day training and get everybody certified at one?
I don't think that they would do a whole pool. That's not
They're all
something
going
they
to
do.
cater right now.
Well, but I agree with you, Mike. That's a cost
So that's
to the kids that have to go through it, that
3
when you
days.
look at the hourly rates, it's
3
makes
days
it-
driving to Decatur,
makes it difficult.
so.
Mark, do we have anybody certified to teach that locally here?
Not currently. At one time Mary's daughter was, but she's not an option now. So that's, I know Heidi was looking into that. We did do some CPR training with some of them. We got a CPR instructor, and she's already done some of that, but I don't think we've got any certifications yet.
Could we contract this through the YMCA over in Mattoon? I know they do lifeguard training over there, I believe they do.
I personally think we should consider it. There are employees, and we need them to be trained to run a safe pool, and I think, you know, at these hourly rates, it's an expensive proposition for them. And if you have rain, or the state comes in and shuts the pool down again, and now they're out that cost, and then they can't make the money on the hourly rate, I think
They're
they're
paying part of it anyway.
You can't have the pool open if you don't have it.
I would certainly be in favor of us supplementing them on that, or making some concession, or getting a contract, getting them all done for one fee, and.
I know the Red Cross does CPR training. I believe it's a very minimal cost, I think it's per person, it's
Yeah,
just
we
for their
actually got,
facility or
I think we
something.
got that one covered. We got CPR through,
But I think the pool over there did lifeguard training. I'm not absolutely positive, but it'd be worth looking into.
I mean, perfect world, we hire somebody to come here and train our staff here, so they don't have the drive time and food and all that stuff.
There may be that individual out there, Martha, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, that's a
I
good
think it's
point.
worth looking into.
Yeah, because then you get the mass in here, you pay one individual, here it is, and, you know,
I'm fine with that. I can discuss it more with Heidi. I know she was pursuing some of those avenues, and she's also been talking with Mary. Since they're both teachers, they have a good working relationship, and she's getting some guidance from Mary on how to solve some of these problems. We have been out to the pool and did a brief oversight and look over the pool, and the park guys are doing work to get the pool ready to open.
I would think the decision on that training piece would need to be made soon, just because they're working, if they're expected to start on Memorial Day weekend, they're working on getting that certification prior to that. So I would think it's some information we would want to compile very quickly and get to the kids, so that they know if they can do it in a more cost-effective way or no cost to them, perfect world,
Most of them's
that they
already,
haven't already spent the money.
most of them's already doing it, because they didn't have a choice. They called Mattoon and Decatur, and Decatur was about the only place that would do it. So,
Well, if we have to potentially consider reimbursement this year, have a program in
they have
place
to
for
get certified every
future years, now's the time to have that conversation.
agreed.
They have some-
I'll have that discussion with Heidi tomorrow and see where her plans are with it, and if we can do anything to make it more feasible, more cost effective, I'm in favor of that.
Can I ask a
When they
question
didn't get to
regarding
use
that?
it 20,
If the city pays, and I think that's a good idea, the city paying for their
it's $200.
training, but then what's the guarantee that once they're trained, that they will stay for the summer and not, like you say, leave to go work for you, or?
Unfortunately, there isn't anything, that's the same thing we deal with in businesses, you can train people and then they leave tomorrow, and you're just out that effort and money and time, so.
Jack, you might be able to ask this, but I've had certifications in my private industry life where the company paid you so much to get it, but if you left, this amount of time, you owe them that much, and employers do it with education, right? We'll pay for your master's. If you stay this long, we'll pay for it all. If you leave at this period, you would owe us this back, that period owe that back. Is that?
You sign an agreement.
You sign an agreement that says
They'd have to be over 18 to do that to begin with.
to sign that kind of agreement, okay.
That, I think it's kind of clunky. It would probably be, I understand you've got two different areas, or at least two different areas of workers out there. You want to keep them happy, but the easiest thing to do, if all else were equal, would just be to build in the training into their salary. But I think the reimbursement part would be fine. And I agree with Mark, you know, you've got a ton of time and money with people, you can't hold them. I think that'd be particularly tough for this younger work crew. So.
Was it feasible we could go ahead and approve the rates, and then we address this issue on the backside as far as if we can supplement or pay for their
I
training?
think that'd be fine.
I will meet with Heidi tomorrow and see where she's at with training and try to explore what options we've got there to minimize the cost to the employee.
And what were the rates again?
Concessions would be $11. Lifeguards would be $11.50. head lifeguards would be $12.50, and then pool manager would be $14.25.
Are we comfortable with that pay scale, and do we want to go ahead and approve the pay scale or address the training at a future meeting?
You only have one pool manager,
Yes.
and only one head lifeguard,
Usually two.
two.
And the pool manager obviously is not there all the hours the pool is open, so they have a trusted head lifeguard that kind of oversees the pool.
We
I'll
have
make that motion.
Commissioner Schaefer, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Shanks,
Just take your side.
roll call, please.
Fernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Item number 14, discussion and request to approve the maintenance and amenities for the downtown streetscape.
That's me, but I've got a couple people here to report on that. Anita Breeden and Karen Cherry are here. We've been working with them for quite some time. Originally, a couple of years back, when we were planning the streetscape, there was an element of it for wayfinding signage and stuff in the downtown, the bump outs being planted, some banners, benches, amenities like that. That all kind of got dropped at some point, but we managed to pick the ball back up and we're working on that. I did authorize them to go ahead and make a plant purchase because they had to purchase the plant in order to get them for this planting season, and it was under the amount required for council approval. But they have a plan that they would like to talk about going forward on taking care of the plants and the other amenities downtown, so.
Right, as a part of the continuing efforts to improve the commerce and aesthetic of Shelbyville's historic downtown, I'd like to submit for your consideration the bids to plant and maintain the softscape that Master Gardener Karen Cherry created as a part of our original plan for downtown improvements. You'll see a bid for preparing and planting and a separate bid to maintain all the areas included in Shelbyville streetscapes. This does include a few filler plantings at the mini park to replace some plants to make that space complete. The preparation and planting bid is a one-time fee and should not be necessary following this year. The maintenance bid outlines the care these gardens will require for the 2021 growing season. Although this bid is for the current season, maintenance will be required each year in the next few years in differing degrees as the gardens become established. Past those few years, general maintenance will continue to be necessary to ensure the gardens are well kept. Research has shown that commerce is positively affected from greenscapes that surround businesses. They help define the vibe of the community and function as a tangible element to draw people to local shops. And for Shelbyville, the care and revitalization is in progress. They serve as a resting, walking, and meeting places to help revive areas where they're valued. Please help continue to fruition the vision for Shelbyville's downtown historic district. And right there are the bids.
Looks like I've got all the copies of the quotes.
You have all the copies.
Hand those out, so is this one set for each and all the same, right?
Yes, each one is the same.
It's different.
No, I think that's the same set. There's 2 pages, but. Do we need more, or is that? More?
Is this?
Oh,
do you have
is
more?
it how
How
many?
many do you have?
It's the
So
same.
this is
Each,
all.
each
Just 2
2-page
pages we
bundle
got.
is the same.
And we can answer any questions that you have. And try to answer any questions you have.
You go ahead and just give us a synopsis of what's included there.
You want to do that? Synopsis of these.
I guess. Basically, the plantings, the areas that we have to plant out here will be cleaned off, all the weeds taken off of them. Because there are a lot of weeds that have already sprouted from last year because the beds were made last year, the soil was put in then. And I have 510 plants. Part of them are at my house and the rest of them will be delivered on Wednesday, I think. These guys have promised they'll do a great job planting them and taking care of them by weeding. And the park crew is supposed to water for us then. So they'll weed the specified times here, every 2 weeks, 5 times. They'll start as soon as they plant. They'll mulch right after they plant because that disturbs the soil and brings up weed seeds. And then they'll do what's called observational weeding later on, starting about June the 1st, I think. So that is the weeds that they happen to miss, observational weeding. They'll grow taller than the plants usually, so they'll come by and take those out. Keeping the weeds from going to seed is very key in having beds that are much easier to maintain in the future. If we can keep the weeds from going to seed for a couple of years, then the weeding becomes minimal, especially in areas like this where there are no other weed patches to seed into those places. So it's very important that you keep the weeds out to start with.
How are these beds going to be watered?
We do have a small water tank that goes on the back of a gator. I would love to have something better, but the guys have agreed that they can get it done with what they've got. And it'll be on me to make sure that they do it on the schedule that Karen prescribes. Because Karen's good at taking care of things, and I need to make sure my guys are following her guidelines.
Is there going to be any spraying of these water beds, of these beds, plant beds?
Herbicide
spraying?
They shouldn't have to be
Okay.
sprayed because actually they're going to use an old process which has become new again, hoeing. So you hoe the beds every 2 weeks, and that's the way they're maintained in Chicago right now. A man named Roy Diblett recommends that you hoe every 2 weeks, and you get very good control of the weeds.
And that's part of this contract.
It is.
Does anybody have any questions?
Were there any other landscapers that you talked to, or just this particular one?
I
mean,
did
or just-
ask Jonathan Elo last summer, I said, have you seen that they're working on the streetscape, and would you be interested? And he said, well, he thought the job was already bidded out. And I said, I don't know, I hadn't heard from anyone until Anita called me, or she contacted me somehow at the end of last summer in August, I think. And she said, could I go up and weed at the mini park? And I said, oh, you're an angel sent from God, because I don't have time to weed everything around here. And she went up and did that, and we talked about the weeding getting done and the new plantings, and I met the contractor that was on the job that day and talked to him a little bit, and he had changed some of the plans. He said he'd taken out several of the beds along there and did not make any of the planting boxes deep enough for trees. So we took all of the trees out, and Jonathan never answered me back, about being interested. And tomorrow I'm supposed to see him. He's working over at another lady's house here in Shelbyville. Anyway, but he's very busy himself, and I'm sure he can't do all of the work,
When I began this, I just happened to be working with Greg Harkins, who's part of this landscaping, Chef Landscaping, and just kind of as an inquiry, and then this is what he developed for us. So just kind of going from that, but formally not entertained any other.
At the beginning of last year, I didn't follow through with it, but I did drive down to Effingham and looked around at some of the places down there, because that was the only thing I could find online that they said they did hand weeding of beds. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. There was one place down there that said that they would do that, but I didn't follow through and try and get an estimate of how much that would cost.
So I guess the other curiosity I have is why we're hiring this out as opposed to having city employees take care of this.
Do you have an answer? You wanna-
I have both of us here, and I guess my thoughts are we've not had fantastic luck in the past with taking that approach because, in no fault on my guys, they get so busy with mowing, and that's all they can get accomplished for a couple of months of the year. And by then, the plantings have been neglected and have not been as well taken care of as they should. I think it takes somebody who's dedicated to doing that and has a horticultural background and will do an expert job. So that's why we're proposing this. I mean, we've put so much into this downtown streetscape, and I think if we don't do a good job of making it look nice, we're missing the boat on it. And I just don't feel confident that that the park employees have the time to accomplish all those things.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, the park employees' time and their level of expertise in these horticulture matters is not, we just need somebody that specializes in that. I contacted Litchfield and I contacted Casey, and so a couple more small towns. And in, for small towns, they often, those two have contracted out for their gardening. They have employees that do work in the city, but for those gardening, horticulture expertise, they've contracted that out. So that's, can be typical then for small communities.
So is this just for the new beds, or is this including the mini park?
This includes the mini park.
The bushes along the parking lot and whatnot.
And it also includes the parking lot, yes.
Great.
And the anticipation is there may be just a little bit of plantings left over that we could use, like for one, I thought maybe the spot by the tourism office as you come up the hill, there's a little wedge shape there with the Lincoln set, or the Lincoln storyboard in it. That would be a place to put a few plants to just kind of tie in with it. So if there are any left over, the beds, we're gonna distribute them to spots that we looked at.
Are there any other questions? Do we want to act on it this evening?
I think it's a good plan and a pretty cheap price, honestly, for what they're gonna do with towing and maintaining them for the whole year. So I'd be comfortable making the motion that we proceed with this contract for the maintenance and planting of the beds. For the
I have one more quick question. One mulch day, it says all beds mulch after plantings mulch to be provided by the customer. Any idea on what that additional cost would be to the city?
Well, I usually keep a running pile out at the sunken garden because I get really nervous if I don't have mulch to put down on bare soil, because then the weeds really grow fast. And they've been great about having that out there, and that's what they used last summer to mulch the beds that are out here already.
By they, are you talking Show Landscaping?
I'm talking the city.
Oh, the city.
The city provides
The city
mulch.
provides mulch.
Just come out of your budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the city also uses part of that mulch to mulch, don't they mulch around some of the...
Yeah, they around the
areas?
playground equipment and stuff like that, they use that mulch for that. And we've always got plenty of mulch, and they acquire more as needed. So mulch, the material would not be a
So that's
cost.
not additional.
Yeah. And I think delivery is even not a cost. Maybe there might be some minor cost in spreading it out if that's what they're proposing, but the mulch isn't a big issue.
Any other questions? So you made the motion to approve the proposal?
Yes.
Second. Made by Commissioner Shanks and seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Roll call, please.
Bernhaber,
Yeah.
Schaefer,
Yes.
Shanks,
Yes.
Wright,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. Item number 15, unfinished business. Commissioner Wright,
No, sir.
Commissioner Bernhaber,
None.
Commissioner Schaefer. No, sir. Commissioner Shanks.
Just a quick update on a couple items we talked about last time. On the Chautauqua building, they are putting the roofing felt down, and metal roofing will be going on very soon. They've also started to work on the pavilion lift, and the two contractors are going to work together on timing so that will be lifted in time for the concrete to be jacked out and replaced into there, so that's moving forward. And then we did actually have a pretty good win on the asbestos removal. Lee Ostiff, the AAA asbestos company that we're dealing with, was able to come back to me with a price of only $1,165 to remove the 10 windows that needed removed and remove the caulking with them. And I went ahead and authorized him to go ahead and do that, so he has actually taken care of that already. The windows are out. The only other cost we'll have will be a small cost in just putting new glass back in those, and the painting contractor is willing to do that for just cost of time and materials. Very different.
So you're saying 10 panes, 10 window panes?
10 window panes. There were 8 broken initially, and I think there was a couple that were cracked during, construction. One of a duck flew through the other day when we were out there. So there are 10 windows that were busted, and he was able to remove all those with his asbestos containment gear and everything on, and scraped the caulking and said that those are legal and approved now to be rebuilt.
Any other unfinished?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Item number 16, new business. Commissioner Wright?
No, sir.
Commissioner Fernhaber?
No, thank
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes, I've been asked by a couple of local musicians if they could perform, I guess you could call it street musicians or whatnot at the mini park. Is there any reason why we can't do that? Have them perform out there?
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah,
And this wouldn't be, large bands with all that stuff. It'd be acoustic. As far as I know, it would be acoustic that would come in there, so there wouldn't be any utility usage or anything like that, or setups or anything like that, but just if they wanted to come out there and strum and do whatnot, on the weekends, I think it'd be a nice thing to have out there, especially if people are milling around and whatnot.
yeah. I don't know whether they would have to get prior approval, but if it's just 1 or 2 people and they're not, using amplifiers or anything, I don't even know, would they have to get prior approval from us or?
Okay, and I'll relay that to them, and perhaps this will get some downtown activity.
I think it'd be nice.
I suppose if we get thousands of people hanging around down there, maybe we might reconsider doing this, but somehow I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, I hope it does.
Oh, yeah, it'd be nice.
Any other new business?
That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Shanks, new business?
Nothing, Mayor?
Mr. Kiley, do you have anything?
No, sir, thank you.
Kelly? Sarah? Mike? Am I hitting everybody? Rachel, do you have anything?
No.
One thing I would mention is that because of the construction and with tomorrow being election day, Shelbyville precincts 3 and 4 that usually vote at the township building is being moved, we've been told, to the tourism building, the emergency management building up here next to the courthouse. So just wanted to make that announcement. Item number 17, public comment. Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name is Kirk Allen. I just got a couple of things. One of the prior meetings, and I don't remember whether it was last month or a couple months ago, I understand there was a change in your farm lease that you're now going to have the farmer pay the property tax. Could you share with the public why that change took place?
Mr. Colley, do you?
As far as I understand, the manager had asked which way that was supposed to go, and we looked into it and determined that was the proper way to do it.
Awesome, thank you. The other thing, just an info, there's a lot of things that were approved and voted on tonight that dealt with public funds. The Open Meetings Act outlines under 2E, there should be sufficient information to inform the public, the action. I know there's a lot of information shared, but the one thing that wasn't was any dollar figures. And in the future, if you could do that, I know a lot of citizens really appreciate knowing, what kind of funds were being dispersed for whatever different projects. The only other thing I have, and your engineer's not here, so it may be something you can get an answer from him. Second gentleman from the end, you had asked a question about isolation of a leak within a main in relation to the water meters. And he said, well, yeah, in theory, it'll do that. Well, I want you to think about it for a minute, and I don't know where you're putting these meters at, but if it's meters to residents and businesses, if you all have a brand new meter, and it's all shut off, nobody's flowing water, and this main is coming 2 miles to you, and it's got a leak, the telemetry from all your meters says there's no water flowing, but you still got a leak. The only way you can have isolation of a water main system is to have telemetry or meters within your isolation valves. There's no other way to do it. Now, if he has a theory that would work, I would love to hear it. But I teach hydraulics all over the country for fire service, and you can't do it with just water meters at residents and businesses. It will not work. It won't tell you anything. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I have a question. I want to get your guys' opinion on the Winston being the next water and sewer commissioner. He got demoted for time card fraud when he was a lead of that department. Now he's gonna be in charge of the road department he committed fraud in.
Your point being?
Strikes me as odd.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
One of the things I was gonna ask that Kirk brought up was, how much is this costing to plant 500 and something? What is the cost of that for the streetscape? Or are you allowed to tell the public that? Of what you voted on tonight, on what it's gonna cost to do all this planting and stuff?
Oh, what was it? It was
Yeah,
4,000
It was
plus.
$1,500 for the preparing the beds for the plants and digging the holes for planting of plants. And then the $4,000 was for the maintenance for the whole year. I'm sorry, I thought we mentioned those numbers. I didn't mean to not mention those.
No, that's okay, that's okay.
I was, just dovetail on that, Kirk, can you explain, was your concern about the figures, it should be published in the agenda, or that just should be brought out during the meeting?
No, I think your attorney can tell you with the Open Meetings Act, 2E just outlines a recital with sufficient information to inform the public. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on the agenda, but if in the discussion, some type of a recital that informs the public, then they've got a really good idea of exactly what went on.
No, I think we're all totally in favor of that. It was just oversight. I'm sorry, I thought those numbers were published and I didn't realize that we didn't have those to the public.
And do you know when, and I look at you, Mark, because you're the parks guy. Do you know when the cameras are going to get installed?
We had a site survey week and a half ago, determined the final locations of all of them, determined where we would need power and additional amenities. Got the plan all worked out, came back, thought we were ready to go, and it turns out 2 of the poles that we were using are Emeren poles, and we have to get permission from them, or we have to put poles adjacent to them. So it's a little snafu in that, but I would anticipate within the next month, they're actually going to be installing cameras, probably sooner rather than later, but we had to work out that deal on the poles.
So then will the washrooms be open?
Yes,
I mean, because now it's, it's late till 7 o'clock. They're closed at like 2:30, the one that's open. On the weekend, you're out of luck.
You're 100% correct on that. I agree with you entirely. We've discussed that, and the issue was before we were having recurrent vandalism at the restroom on the back of the senior center. And it was probably the same person doing it over and over again because it was the same types of things done. So we're locking the bathrooms when they left their shift for the day. They are off by 3:30, so basically the bathrooms were locked from then on. It was never a good solution. That's not what I wanted. It's not what I desired. But until we felt like we could get the vandalism under control, we were kind of trying to protect what we had there. But the plan is, once these cameras are in place, I want the bathrooms to be open full-time, all the time, at least until late at night. If not, just leave them unlocked.
Well, that's why I asked about the cameras first.
Right. The idea, and one of those cameras is going to be positioned to record that very area in front of the restrooms.
Okay.
Any other public comments? In that case, the next item would be executive session. Do we have a motion to temporarily recess the stated meeting and move into executive session to discuss litigation?
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Schaefer, Commissioner second. Roll call, please.
Bernhaber?
Yes.
Schaefer?
Yes.
Shanks?
Yes.
Wright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. And as been the custom since COVID started, we would ask everybody to please